All right, so here we are, everybody. This is an MS Views Now program, and I am Stuart Schlossman. I'm president and founder of MS Views and News. And by the way, we are sponsored tonight by Genentech. I wanted to let you all know that as well. Our guest for tonight is Lisa Gonzalez-Goetz, and Lisa has been practicing for 30 years. She's a specialist of Social Security disability law, and she does Social Security disability law and veterans law. She's 30th year of practice, specifically Social Security disability and veterans law. She also does a lot with Medicare Advantage planning. So she now has a insurance company called We Get Your Insurance, and she does this in 30 different states. So if there's anybody online that needs to know more about, like, say, Medicare Advantage planning and insurance, you can speak with Lisa and her team about that separately. That you could ask questions about that tonight as well if you'd like, but specifically we will be speaking about Social Security disability law updates, the application process, eligibility, and so on. So let's welcome Lisa, and she'll be speaking for about 30 minutes, and then I'll come back online and we'll do some Q&A. All right, take it away, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I haven't answered any questions or spoken to you in a format. I have individually to people, but not since November of 2021. So it's nice to be back. Thank you. Just so that you know, I will start by giving you my information. I will repeat it at the end. But if anybody has any questions on the show, off the show, in a week, in a month, in a year, my email is my name, Lisa, Lisa, at GG, like good, law, LAW, .info for information. So it's Lisa at gglaw.info. And the name of my firm is Gonzales-Goetz. And in Goetz, the O is silent. So it's Goetz. I am always open to answering any questions. I'm going to just shoot with a few of the most the new things that I have coming in, what has transpired after COVID, during COVID, and with the administration and some of the changes that have gone on with Social Security. There hasn't been many changes, but they seem to be some up and coming. So within the next couple of years, we're going to see some changes in disability and the way they analyze disability benefits with regard to the listing, the age of retirement changing, the ability to work and how much work you can make before you get disqualified for Social Security. So we will talk about that in depth. Right now, for 2023, the amount of work activity that you could do went up to $1,470. So that's $1,470 per month. After that, you won't be able to receive disability benefits because they'll consider that the work you were doing is substantial and gainful. So the figures go up every year. For 2023, it's $1,470. And then the amount of money that you have to work to qualify for disability benefits also went up a little bit. So you have to have worked 5 out of the last 10 years in order to collect benefits under your account. That's a rule of thumb. There's some exceptions, but every year is associated with 4 quarters. And right now, if you earn $1,640, and if anybody needs this repeated, just email me and I'll give you the amounts, but $1,640 earns you a quarter. And if you've worked $6,560 per year, will cover you. So the numbers are pretty low, even though they've gone up. But if you've earned $6,560 in a given year, that will be considered 4 quarters of coverage. And you need 5 out of the last 10 years to qualify under your account. You should know that for Social Security purposes, we get asked oftentimes, why do I need an attorney? Or hiring an attorney is going to cost me money. Let me tell you that whether you hire an attorney or an advocate, which is not an attorney, they are only charging you if they win a case. So we don't charge unless we win. We won't take a case unless we believe we can win the case. And the reason is because we won't get paid. So as much as it's been my practice, my lifelong practice, my devotion to represent people with disabilities and go after what I believe they're entitled to by law and go against the government, as much as it's my passion, I don't work pro bono and I'm not a social worker. So we do work for profit, but we would only take your case if we believe we can win it. So with that said, you have to know that you only pay once you've received your payment. So you have nothing to lose. You could call attorneys. You can try to see whether or not they believe that you qualify based on your diagnoses, your impairments. I'm going to go a little bit through what you need specifically for MS, because that seems to be an appropriate question to answer here. In order to prove that you're disabled. So it's not simply enough to say I've been diagnosed. It's not simply enough to say I was fired because I couldn't do my job. You have to show that you're not able to work because of your impairment. So those two things have to be tied together. With a diagnosis of MS, Let me start by saying many years ago, MS was hard to diagnose, as was fibromyalgia, as is currently long haul COVID. So there are a lot of impairments that take a long time to get on the books of Social Security and get the administrative notice where now you qualify and it's an actual impairment that is acknowledged and accepted and considered by Social Security disability. So the listing of impairments are requirements where if you meet certain criteria, your benefits should be approved automatically. But many, many, many times they're not. And the reason is because even though you may have 90% of the criteria, you missed 100%. Or maybe you have skills that they can turn around and say, well, this may be true, but you are working, so you don't qualify. So every case is very individual, and it's important that you get the advice of a professional. There are a lot of advocates out there. They are either non-attorney representatives that represent individuals applying for disability, or they are advocates that have taken an exam, college. I believe they have to go to college and graduate. And some of them could be very good at representing you or doing your paperwork. But if you don't win the case at a hearing level, then your case ends there. Nobody's really appealing the judge's decision or appealing the appeals council into federal court. So the fees are always, whether it's an attorney or non-attorney, the fees are always based on the win. If you win your case, you're entitled to benefits. Those retroactive fees get separated, and some of the retroactive fees go to the attorney or representative. So you're paying the same amount. You don't pay more because it's an attorney. But you do get better representation in terms of being able to appeal and go all the way. You don't see many attorneys appeal cases, basically, and a non-attorney is just not able to. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. With MS, there's a listing of impairment. It's 11.09. If anybody's taking notes. And the 11.09, if you just Google it, gives you MS, multiple sclerosis characterized by A and B criteria. And very quickly, I only have a half an hour, I can talk volumes on what you need to do to represent and win a case successfully, but it really deals with whether there's disorganization of a motor function of two extremities, result extreme limitation, and in an inability to stand up from a seated position, balance while standing or walking, or use of upper extremities. So that's one way to kind of assess if you're there. You may consider applying for disability benefits. Another aspect could be that MS is affecting you cognitively and not physically. So that's the criteria B of the same listing, 11.09. And that criteria is having one of the physical function limitations, not much. However, having problems with understanding, remembering, or applying information, or interacting with others, or concentration, persistence, and pace. Another aspect of that same B criteria would be adapting or managing oneself. So if you start falling within any of these symptoms, speak to your doctor, speak to your family, speak to your employer if you're currently working, and it would be time to consider applying for disability. The process takes a long time. Even now with COVID, I'm finding that we're in 2023, May of 2023, and the process is actually finally starting to move quicker. But either way, even though it's moving quicker, it's still a long, lengthy process. So there's a lot of stress involved, a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of phone calls. Sometimes doctors will be scheduled for you to go and see. So for all these reasons, you do it when you first have any of these characterized symptoms. And your doctor and speaking to an attorney, such as myself, can in combination guide you so that you could get the most favorable outcome as quickly as possible. Social Security has increased their decision rates. They are approving more cases than they have in the past. I would say statistically it's gone up between 1% and 4% in terms of approval rates. And I believe that that has to do with the unfortunate task of reviewing cases that have been sitting in the pipeline for very, very long during COVID. Social Security offices were closed. They did some work from home. They were not so accountable with their work. It's very difficult to reach people. The local offices were closed. Then when they reopened, they were reopened with appointment only. So for those reasons, I believe a lot of these approvals were approvals that should have been given and granted years ago. With that said, the wait times have decreased. So it's a nice combination. We hope to see more traction with that way, where if you're applying for benefits, you qualify, you should be awarded benefits sooner, you should see higher ratings and shorter wait times. So we hope that this trajectory continues. But there's no saying. So finding your physical limitations, finding help with your doctor that will support you filing for disability will be very helpful. And putting those two things in combination with family support and doctor treatments and objective records. So let's talk very quickly about objective testing. I am not a doctor. I do sit in often and listen to doctors. I argue with doctors often, and I do respect enormously the doctors that have assisted Stuart with MS Views and News. And I believe that they're right on point with the imaging that is required. So for the disorganization of the motor function and difficulties in both extremities, either upper or with balancing, they're looking for objective records, objective medical testing. They could be ECGs, they could be MRIs, they could be brain scans. They have to be objective. So when you put this together and you go to a proper MS doctor, it's a shoe-in. It's a really, really nice situation. Unfortunately, a lot of Americans are lacking the ability to afford insurance. And if they do afford insurance, they certainly don't have an MS specialist. So these programs are great because it educates you and you're able to advocate for yourself with any doctors that you do have. But it's really important to seek treatment from a professional that's versed in MS, because then they're not labeling your problems with a herniated disc, or they're not labeling your problems with depression or anxiety or situational because you have financial stressors, economic stressors. They're actually diagnosing and they have the objective records to prove it. So by way of that, and this criteria works for any person applying for disability, but for MS, because it starts as such a slow progressive disease and hard to diagnose for many, it is important to have that. So I hope I'm on pace, because it's a little bit, I'm here, I feel like I'm just talking, but I hope I'm giving some good inspirational information and useful information for anybody out there, anybody who knows somebody applying for disability benefits, or for yourself. There are resources out there to help you. Very important, don't wait until you mess up to get yourself an attorney. Many times people apply. I had a person today that called me yesterday on my cell phone. I'm always available. And he called asking me if I'd represent him for tomorrow's hearing, which was today. And it was a great case. So I said yes, took on the representation, explained to the judge we needed some more time, wanted to take testimony, and I believe this individual will have a favorable outcome. But there was a lot of cleanup that we had to do, because he's gone through a year and a half of giving information to Social Security and the administration, talking to doctors or not going to doctors. And it was not a surprise that he was denied so many times, but this was actually a case that I could sit in and pitch hit in today because I had availability in my schedule. So if you think you want to apply, we take cases at every level, at the beginning, at the reconsideration, at the request for hearing. But the sooner we get the case, the easier it is for us to kind of navigate it and give Social Security all the information that they need. The main reason you would work for a disability attorney is so that they could obviously win your case. They can also help you with a lot of the paperwork that you receive. You get appeals that you have to do within 60 days, and they're timely. So once you have an attorney, everything you receive gets copied also to an attorney. So we both get the same thing, and we're able to navigate all the appeals, all the paperwork, all the doctor appointments at the same time. So that really streamlines the case, and it makes it easy for us to hand your case to the Social Security Administration on a silver platter, with the hope that you'll get a favorable outcome sooner. One of the questions that was asked of me oftentimes is, what are the major changes since the pandemic? And I would say that we had a lot of times that the phone hearings were done. It's not even by Zoom, because, as you know, it's very complicated to get on. It wasn't Zoom, it's Microsoft Teams, and you get a code, and it was very complicated. So we do them by phone. There are a lot of people on the phone. It's almost like a party line, like 4 or 5 people maybe on the phone call at once. That's new. So it'll be the judge, the attorney, you, the client, a vocational expert, a hearing assistant for the judge that takes notes and connects the phones, and then finally, if necessary, a medical doctor who's also present. So all these people are on the phone at the same time. At the beginning of COVID, it was like, wow, what do you do with this? Like, it's a little bit crazy. But the truth is it went very smoothly. The judge holds the case. You know not to speak above anybody else. You're asked questions preliminarily to make sure that you are who you say you are. They swear you in. You have to make sure that your phone is fully charged, that the ringer's on, because many people don't have their ringer on, and then they're waiting for a hearing for a year and a half and their ringer isn't on, and that's terrible. But it does happen. But the hearings go very smoothly. They actually have continued the hearings this way if the client wants it. So now it's no longer required. Now it's up to the client. And many times, getting to a hearing at the same time that you have to get there and time, going through security, parking is a very stressful thing to navigate and negotiate. So our clients have opted over and over and over again with very favorable outcomes to do it over the phone. They can do it in their room, the comfort of their home. They have their privacy. They have their medications right next to them. They could take some notes if they want to remember what they want to ask at the hearing, or make sure that everything, oh, geez, wait, I forgot. I also have problems remembering, and I'm only talking about, my leg and my walker, and I forgot that I forget things. So if you have it written down, it's a lot smoother. We've had a lot of very, very favorable outcomes that way. So the phone hearings continue. It allows us personally to take more cases on a nationwide basis without having to travel. Clients feel very comfortable. They're not compromised. They don't have to worry about being exposed to any kind of illness, COVID, a cold, anything at all. So, and the hearing seems to go quicker also over the phone. So those are the major changes. It was only phone hearing, no in person. Now you can choose in person. Most people are doing phones, and we're continuing that trend quite successfully, I would add. So those are one of the changes after the pandemic in applying or receiving Social Security. And like I said, more people are receiving favorable outcomes. And the timelines that you were seeing in the pandemic where people had cases and they were just bottlenecked, those are progressing nicely. One of the questions that's always asked is, what is the difference between SSI and SSDI? Earlier on, the first thing I was talking about were the numbers that you needed of quarters to pay into the system. That's FICA. When you've paid into the system, and if you've worked 5 out of the last 10 years, then you would be applying for SSDI. If you haven't worked, or if you've not worked enough quarters, then you would be applying for SSI. SSI is a program that is meant to help disabled individuals that are also indigent, financially indigent. So you have to meet the financial criteria to qualify for SSI. I had a client yesterday who had been on SSI for 9 years, and suddenly he had a car accident and he received a sum of money for his motor vehicle accident when they settled that. And that amount of money that he received was over the $2,000 resource limit. And so he was disqualified from receiving SSI. So by getting that motor vehicle accident money and not seeking an attorney, because there are ways to shelter that money, he actually got himself off the program, losing his Medicaid. And after all the money was depleted from his motor vehicle settlement, then he had to reapply for Social Security benefits, and we were successful in obtaining his SSI case, but we had to prove that his disability continued, and we also had to prove that now he has no money again, and that was the way he won. So the difference between SSDI and SSI is SSDI is when you paid money into the system. It's known as a Title II, and it's based on your work earnings. And the amount of money you would be receiving would be dependent on how much money you pay into the system. With regard to SSI, you've never paid into the system, or you paid but not enough. And so therefore you have to show that you're also financially indigent. So there's two types of programs. Sometimes you're both programs. Maybe you worked, but you didn't pay a lot into Social Security, you're still indigent, you would qualify for both programs. When somebody is looking to apply for Social Security disability, the first thing I would ask them is, have you worked? Try to establish, did you work 5 out of the last 10 years? Do you have enough quarters of coverage? Or are you short? Which application do we need to apply for you? And then we need to see, why did you stop working? Is it because you weren't able to perform the work? And if you weren't able to perform that particular work, is there any other work that you may be able to perform in the national economy? If you can prove that there's no other work you could perform in the national economy because of a medical condition, then you can win your case. So help from doctors is very, very important. Like I said before, and I tell my clients on a daily basis, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't diagnose you, but I can work with the diagnoses that the doctors give you based on the medications that you take. What kind of medications? How often are they changed? Trying to find the right medication for you. And when you take them, do you have any side effects? And what kind of side effects? Are they stomach aches? Are they drowsiness? All these effects of your medication could prevent you from working. And I have won cases based on side effects of medication only, if the medication is required for you to take. So those are very, very individualized cases. And that's why every case is treated very differently. And that's why a lot of cases are harder to prove, because it has to do with your age, your education, your work experience, and the residuals that you have despite having disability and limitations. What are you able to do? What can you focus on doing? And can that be translatable to a job that's 40 hours a week on a continuous basis? So those are the basic foundations of disability on a very clear note. I will tell you that if you look at our website, there are a lot of case studies, a lot of clients and active cases that I take. I've now evolved to writing a blog on them and giving you an example of a variety of cases in different parts of urban and rural America, and what age a person is and what happens at a hearing. And you can look at that. There's also some changes that have gone on in terms of the long haul COVID, which I briefly talked about. And since COVID, that's now being more and more addressed. I did put something on the website about it, where they're looking at it, they're really considering long haul COVID, and they have decided, a recent article in the Scientific American's February 2023 issue, titled "Long COVID Now Looks Like a Neurological Disease." and they're trying to help doctors focus on treatment. So the importance of that is now we may see in the next few years legislation and laws and listings about how to analyze and interpret long-haul COVID. Right now, it's just starting, and it's for individuals who have tested positive for COVID and despite testing negative, continue to suffer for symptoms for more than 3 months. The medical profession calls it post-acute sequel of COVID-19, or PASC, and it includes symptoms of fatigue, pain, and individuals who are having problems remembering and focusing. Many applying for or receiving disability benefits are high-risk individuals, which suffer from rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, cancer patients, which have a higher risk of having these issues of COVID diagnosis. So it's still in the very early stages, but you can see that at least the scientific world is addressing it, is trying to find a way to diagnose it, find objective records. I have seen people that fall into this category, but again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not getting doctors to kind of support that. So I'll have an individual pulmonologist tell me about their breathing and a rheumatologist tell me about their arthritis, and I'll have a neurologist tell me about the limitations. But I don't have like one doctor that can pinpoint all these impairments are based on this diagnosis. But I do have people, a particular person who suffers from swollen lymph nodes, has severe tachycardia, post 3 months, 6 months, a year after having had COVID and testing negative. They have been diagnosed with a pulmonary embolism, and that has created throat problems, hearing problems, which we can't even talk about how it's created anxiety, discourse, depression. It's gone through the gamut. So is this associated with COVID? Nobody really knows why certain individuals are affected differently. But, the most important thing for me as a practitioner is to know that they are addressing this. And by addressing this, it means that Social Security will have to follow lead. And even if you don't have a diagnosis like this, you would be able to say, based on all these problems, a person is A, not able to work, B, because of a physical or mental impairment, C, which prevents them from working 40 hours a week on a sustained basis. So we put all that together with the medical records and the complaints and treatments, and we end up being successful in the case. So those are the cases that we're seeing more and more now. And it's because we deal with a pool of people that already have underlying medical conditions that are pre-existing and makes them more of a high risk. So it's not a surprise, and it's not a surprise likewise that they're doing hearings by phone or offering them. I think the judges also feel more comfortable that way. So we do have hearings in person. Those are based on the individual client if they really want to be in person, but generally it's now through the phone. So I can keep talking. I know that I've passed my 30 minutes, but I'm happy to talk to you. I'm really eager to hear questions and know how I can help you guys. One of the questions that I often get also is, how much can I work and still get Social Security benefits? I've been getting benefits for the last 10 years or 5 years or 2 years, and I really want to go back to work. I've been offered disability to do work, I don't know, tutoring or working from home or helping answer calls. Can I please work? And it is my hope that everybody should be able to have good health insurance and work. And I would never want to dissuade anybody from working. I will tell you that once you start working, when you are receiving benefits, you are automatically throwing up a red flag and saying, I may not be able to work 40 hours a week, but I can do some work. And once you open that red flag, you start saying, well, maybe those 10 hours can be 15 or 20, and little by little, the government could turn around and cut your benefits. So working will create red flags. So think about it very carefully. Speak to your doctor, speak to your attorney, and get some really good, solid advice before you make that decision. Thank you.